So 39 is also from Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhuma, أن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم قال إن الله تجاوز لي عن أمتي الخطأ والنسيان وما استكره عليه حديث حسن رواه ابن ماجه والبيهقي وغيرهما. Hadith says that indeed Allah has pardoned my ummah for al-khata, any mistakes they made, wan-nisyan, anything that they forgot, and whatever they were forced to do, coerced to do, what they did under duress. For any of this, they are not held accountable, they are forgiven. That's what the hadith states. And again, it's about Allah's mercy upon the ummah, walhamdulillah. This is, hadith says, for my ummah, which means this was not applied to the previous ummahs. The previous nations did not have this bounty, where they were forgiven for their mistakes, and forgiven for their forgetfulness, and for what they were forced to do. Right? So, first one is khata. What's a khata? A mistake. Yani, you did it unknowingly. You did it without knowledge that this is wrong, for example. You did something haram, but you did not know it's haram. That's a khata. It's a mistake. Right? Somebody maybe did a wrong investment, but he had no idea that it's haram. So for that, he will not be punished. Yeah, we could argue, maybe he should have asked, and he should have inquired first, and fair enough. But the basic principle is, anything that you did and you did not know it's haram, you will not be held accountable for this. Secondly is what? Forgetfulness. Nisyan. This happens to every person. At times we forget. We do things out of forgetfulness. Right? Anything that slips the mind, you forgot, you will not be held accountable for this. Tayyib. Examples. Somebody forgets to make salah. It happens. For example, you have a ada. I always pray Isha on time. I always pray Isha in the masjid in Jama'ah, for example. Something happened one day and you did not get the chance to get to the masjid. 2-3 hours later, the way your mind works is what? You feel as if you've prayed Isha. Because usually when it gets to 10 p.m., you've done your salah for the day, you've done your Isha. Yet at that moment you did say, I will pray later. The rest of the night you felt like as if you've prayed. It slips your mind. It slips your mind, did you pray or not? Or you forget to pray. The next day you realize, hey, I didn't pray Isha last night. I just remembered now that I actually didn't pray Isha last night because I didn't go to masjid, and then after that I got busy, and I was busy, and I didn't pray Isha last night. In such a case, this person is not sinful. He's not sinful because he did not purposely miss the salah or avoid the salah. Secondly, you perform salah without wudu. You perform salah without wudu. There's no sin upon you. However, the ruling obviously with regards to salah is you have to make it up as soon as possible. As soon as possible. So, what we have to look at is a couple of situations I can mention for benefit. That number one is if a person unintentionally failed to perform an obligatory act, then he must perform the act to fulfill his responsibility to Allah, but he will not be sinful. As the examples I just gave, like of the salah. So those things are wajib. Wudu is wajib. Salah is wajib. You forgot to do it, you have to do it as soon as you remember. It's not like it's waived completely. You don't have to do the deed again. No. You have to perform the deed as soon as you remember. As soon as you remember, and that's what the hadith states. That the person who oversleeps or forgot to pray, he has to pray as soon as he remembers or when he wakes up. He has to do this. Second situation is, if due to a mistake or forgetfulness, a person performs a forbidden act that does not involve the destruction of any property or wealth or the violation of a person's rights, then there's no punishment or penalty upon him. So you do something forbidden without knowing or forgetfully, but you haven't destroyed anything, harmed anybody. then there's no punishment or penalty upon you. طيب, a person drinks an alcoholic drink that he did not know contained alcohol. He was told, or he thought it's alcohol free, and he drank. And he became intoxicated by this. Is there sin upon him? This is a khata, it's a mistake. There's no sin upon him. Right? And he did not harm anybody else either. So there's no punishment or penalty for him. Thirdly, if due to the mistake the person performs a forbidden act that involves the destruction of somebody else's property or wealth, he is responsible for the act that he committed. Even though it's a mistake, you are liable because you've harmed somebody else and you've damaged their property. Obviously, if this was not the case, then there would be chaos everywhere. Because everybody would be saying, "It was a mistake, I forgot, sorry, your house burned down, but I didn't intend for that to happen, and it was a small accident," and you will be held accountable for this in the Sharia. Number 4 is if a person performs an act unintentionally or out of forgetfulness that would normally require prescribed punishment. It would require prescribed punishment, right? Like the Sharia's punishments. Then, would he get it or not? Was it a mistake? Or it was out of forgetfulness? Does he get the punishment? It depends on yeah. What if the authorities come to him and say, you've stolen this? Caught him. And he's like, I didn't know. If he can prove he didn't know it, then they would not punish him for this. Yeah, we must obviously return the goods. But he will not be punished for this because of this hadith. He did unknowingly, or he wasn't aware of what he did, and so forth. At times, though, there might be something else he has to do. Like in the case of killing a Muslim by accident. In the Qur'an, Allah speaks about 2 cases where you kill a Muslim purposefully and a person who kills a Muslim by accident. And then there's examples that's given in the verses of the Qur'an of what you have to do towards the family of the deceased. But he will not get the death penalty because it was a mistake, it was an accident, and so forth. But there are things he will have to do as a punishment for the mistake that he committed. Right, so it does depend on the situation. Some things will be completely overlooked. Some things there will be a small punishment, and at times, but it won't be the full punishment of the law because of the either forgetfulness or a mistake. And then thirdly, we have under duress. وَمَا اسْتُكْرِهُ عَلَيْهِ, the one who has ikrah done upon him, was forced, gun to his head, governor came and forced him to divorce his wife. And this is an issue. Imam Malik rahimahullah ta'ala was beaten for this. You know this? Imam Malik was beaten by the ruler for this. They came to Imam Malik and they said to him, pass a fatwa that says that if you divorce your wife, or if you are forced to divorce your wife, it counts as a divorce. Okay? If the ruler says to you, you have to divorce your wife, they're forcing you, they're compelling you. The ruling in the Sharia says, even if I did it, it don't count as a divorce. So if someone forces me and says, divorce your wife or else I'm going to do this and do this and I'm going to harm this one and this one. If you know the threat is real, if it's a guy that you don't take him seriously, that's not a real threat. But if you know the threat is real and you go to him and say, I divorce you, that in the court of Islam it doesn't count as a divorce because the person has been coerced, he's been forced. So they wanted a fatwa from Malik and they said, if the governor says you must do it and you do it, it counts as a divorce. But Malik said, no ways, I will not pass a fatwa like this. And this is why they beat him. So they beat him for this, and this is why Imam Malik used to pray with his hands by his sides, because he couldn't raise his hands up and fold his arms because he was beaten badly. Understand? Ala kulli hal, the point is this: anything that a person is forced to do, It could be through gunpoint, it could be through whatever form of duress. He sees as a threat here. He knows if I don't do this, someone could harm me, or harm my family, or harm another Muslim. Then he does it, and he will not be held accountable for this, nor does it actually count. Like a divorce wouldn't count as a divorce. Even if you uttered words of kufr. Someone says to you, declare yourself a disbeliever. He says, okay, I disbelieve in Allah. And that saves your life, this would be permissible. You would not be declared as a disbeliever. Allah will judge you as a Muslim, and so forth. There is now the issue of there's higher levels to this. Some people will not do this, not accept and still say I'm a Muslim and die as a shaheed. That's one thing. But the person who gives in and says, okay, I'm a disbeliever, and he gets himself out of trouble, he will not be held accountable for this. He will not be held accountable. And there are examples of this, like the Sahaba being punished. Bilal, Ahadun Ahad, Ahadun Ahad. He kept saying one, and they forced him, and they punished him, they tortured him. But that's high levels of Iman. Not every person can do that, and Allah knows this. There was the wife of Fir'aun, and the hairdresser of Fir'aun, the hairdresser. These women were punished and told to give up their belief in Allah. And what happened? They refused. And they were thrown into this huge fire. This woman's children were thrown in. You know the story. And when she came to an infant, suckling infant, she was about to, and she hesitated. And the infant spoke. This is one of the cases where an infant spoke. Besides Isa alayhi salam, it was this woman's child, and consoled her, and she threw the child in, and she eventually killed herself. Why? Out of refusing to go into kufr. Had she technically, if it was Islam at least, if someone were today to say, okay, I give up, is my deen, we say there's no punishment upon them. But as I said, some people have higher levels of Iman, and they might stand firm and they die as a martyr. And Allah knows best.